My name is Rebecca Martinez, and for the past 6 years, I've worked as a research librarian at Riverside Community College in Portland, Oregon. At 34, I'd built what most people would call a perfectly ordinary life. I arrived at work each morning at 7:30 a.m. sharp, organized return books with methodical precision, and helped students navigate our extensive military history and criminal justice collections with what my colleagues called surprising expertise. The truth was, I preferred being unremarkable. My wardrobe consisted of cardigans, sensible flats, and muted colors that helped me blend into the background. I lived alone in a modest apartment near campus, my evenings spent reading academic journals and maintaining a fitness routine that I kept deliberately private. Most people saw exactly what I wanted them to see. A helpful, forgettable woman who'd found her niche in the quiet corners of academia. That changed when Marcus Blackwood arrived as our new head librarian in September. Marcus came with impressive credentials, a PhD in Information Sciences from Columbia, experience at prestigious university libraries, and recommendations that praised his innovative approaches to modern library management. He was 28, impeccably dressed, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. During his introduction meeting, he outlined his vision for elevating our institutional profile and optimizing human resources. The first red flag appeared during his second week. Marcus called me into his office, a space he'd already redecorated with expensive furniture and motivational posters about leadership excellence. "Rebecca," he began, not bothering to look up from his computer, "I've been reviewing your work patterns. You seem to spend considerable time in our specialized collections. Military strategy, law enforcement procedures, that sort of thing. It's creating an unbalanced focus." I kept my expression neutral. Those sections require expertise to properly assist researchers. I have background knowledge that helps students find relevant materials efficiently. His smile was condescending. "I'm sure you think you do, but going forward, I'd prefer you concentrate on general circulation duties. Filing, basic reference questions, data entry. Leave the specialized research assistants to staff with more appropriate qualifications." The dismissal stung, but I simply nodded. "Of course. Whatever serves the library best." "Excellent." He finally looked at me directly. "I appreciate staff who understand their limitations. It makes management so much easier." As I left his office, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Same unremarkable woman, same forgettable appearance. Marcus saw a middle-aged librarian who'd spent too many years in a comfortable rut. He had no way of knowing that before I became Rebecca Martinez, small-town librarian, I'd been Captain Rebecca Santos, decorated Army intelligence officer with 2 tours in Afghanistan and expertise in tactical operations that I'd deliberately buried beneath 6 years of deliberate ordinariness. Some secrets I'd learned were safer left undisturbed. Marcus's micromanagement began immediately. Within 2 weeks, he'd implemented a new system requiring all staff to log every interaction with patrons, submit daily productivity reports, and seek approval for any research assistance beyond basic directional guidance. The other librarians grumbled privately, but most had families, mortgages, and limited job prospects in our small college town. I adapted quietly, following his increasingly petty rules while watching him operate. Marcus had a pattern: charm the administration with buzzwords about efficiency while systematically undermining the expertise that made our library genuinely useful to students and faculty. He particularly seemed to enjoy diminishing the contributions of female staff members, always with plausible deniability. The first real confrontation came during a busy Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Jennifer Hayes, our criminal justice professor, approached my desk with a complex research request. Her students needed primary sources on counterterrorism tactics for their senior seminar, and she specifically asked for my assistance. "I'll need materials on intelligence gathering protocols, case studies of successful operations, and contemporary analysis of threat assessment procedures," she explained. Rebecca always knows exactly where to find the most relevant sources. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared beside us, his smile sharp. I'm sorry, Dr. Hayes, but Rebecca is no longer handling specialized research requests. I'll be taking over all advanced academic support personally. Dr. Hayes frowned. But Rebecca has been invaluable to my students. She understands the material better than anyone else on staff. I appreciate your loyalty to our team, Marcus replied smoothly, but professional library science requires formal credentials. I have extensive experience with academic research methodologies that ensure students receive properly vetted information. I watched him pull books from the wrong sections, recommend outdated sources, and completely misunderstand Dr. Hayes' requirements. His professional expertise consisted of generic database searches that missed the nuanced, specialized materials that made our collection valuable. Dr. Hayes left frustrated and empty-handed. Later, she cornered me privately. What's happening here, Rebecca? You've been helping my students for years. You know this material better than most professors I work with. I chose my words carefully. Marcus is implementing new procedures. I'm sure he'll find his rhythm. But that evening, I watched Dr. Hayes struggle to find appropriate materials on her own, saw her students receiving inadequate resources for their research, and felt something tighten in my chest. In Afghanistan, watching capable people get undermined by incompetent leadership had consequences measured in lives. Here, the stakes were different, but the injustice felt familiar. Marcus was systematically dismantling the expertise I'd spent years building, not because it was ineffective, but because acknowledging it would diminish his authority. He needed me to be incompetent to validate his necessity. The problem was, I'd forgotten how to stay quiet when people I cared about were being hurt by arrogant leadership. By October, Marcus had expanded his campaign beyond just me. Elena Rodriguez, our part-time evening librarian and graduate student, found herself relegated to menial tasks despite her master's degree in library science. Patricia Chen, who'd run our children's programs for 15 years, was told her story times were too informal and needed professional oversight. The breaking point for others came when Marcus eliminated our community outreach programs, literacy classes for adult learners, homework help for local high school students, and computer training for seniors. These programs had been the heart of our community engagement, but Marcus deemed them outside our core educational mission. We're not a social services agency, he announced during a staff meeting. Our focus should be supporting college-level academic research exclusively. I watched Patricia's face crumble. She'd built those programs from nothing, had genuinely helped hundreds of community members over the years. Elena looked defeated, knowing her evening position would likely be eliminated next. But Marcus wasn't finished with me specifically. He seemed to view my quiet compliance as either weakness or defiance. I couldn't tell which bothered him more. During November, he began assigning me deliberately demeaning tasks, organizing supply closets, inputting decades-old card catalog information into digital systems, and cleaning duties that weren't part of anyone's job description. Rebecca, he'd say with mock concern, I notice you seem most comfortable with these routine tasks. Perhaps we should adjust your position description to better match your capabilities. The threat was clear. He was building a case for either demoting me or pushing me out entirely. His mistake was underestimating how much I'd grown to care about this place and these people. Dr. Hayes had started bringing me research requests secretly, knowing I'd help her students after hours. Patricia quietly asked for advice on maintaining her programs independently. Elena confided that she was struggling financially and couldn't afford to lose her position. One evening, while organizing storage rooms, according to Marcus's latest mandate, I discovered something interesting. Our library had received a substantial federal grant 2 years earlier specifically for community outreach and educational support programs. The grant required those programs to continue for 5 years, with detailed reporting on their community impact. Marcus had eliminated programs that were not only federally funded but legally mandated. I photographed the grant documentation with my phone, cross-referenced the requirements with what Marcus had actually reported to the college administration, and realized he'd been falsifying reports to make his budget cuts appear justified. The soldier in me recognized this pattern. Someone in authority making decisions based on incomplete information while subordinates suffered the consequences. In the military, such leadership got people killed. In civilian life, it destroyed communities and livelihoods just as effectively. Marcus had made this personal when he targeted my colleagues. Now it was time for him to learn what professional accountability actually looked like. December brought the final escalation. Marcus called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and false sympathy that I recognized from every incompetent leader I'd ever encountered. "Rebecca, I've been doing some thinking about your future here," he began, gesturing for me to sit while he remained standing. A classic power positioning tactic. "Your performance reviews have been concerning. Difficulty adapting to new procedures, resistance to professional development, limited engagement with contemporary library science practices." I said nothing, waiting for him to reveal his actual purpose. "The college is implementing budget cuts next semester," he continued, "and unfortunately, we'll need to eliminate some positions. Given your performance issues and limited skill set, I'm recommending your position for termination, effective January 15th. The lies were so blatant, I almost admired their audacity. My performance had been flawless by any objective measure, but Marcus had been documenting fictional problems to justify this predetermined outcome. "However," he said, clearly savoring the moment, "I'm prepared to offer you an alternative. We have an opening for a part-time circulation assistant, 20 hours per week, no benefits, primarily shelving and basic data entry. It would allow you to stay employed while transitioning to more suitable work elsewhere." The insult was carefully calculated. He wanted me to quit rather than fight termination, saving the college potential unemployment costs while ensuring I left defeated and grateful for his mercy. That weekend, I sat in my apartment staring at a cardboard box I kept in my bedroom closet. Inside were my military commendations, photos from my deployment, and documentation of my real qualifications. A master's degree in intelligence studies, specialized training in conflict resolution and strategic planning, and experience managing complex operations under extreme pressure. For 6 years, I'd hidden these credentials, choosing the quiet anonymity of civilian life over the recognition my service had earned. I'd built a peaceful existence helping students and community members, finding purpose in small kindnesses rather than high-stakes decisions. But Marcus had made a fundamental miscalculation. He'd threatened not just me, but the programs and people I'd grown to protect. Patricia's literacy classes served women escaping domestic violence, giving them skills to rebuild their lives. Elena's evening position supported her studies, while she raised 2 young children alone. Dr. Hayes' students went on to careers in law enforcement and social work, using the research skills I'd helped them develop to serve their communities. Marcus saw these as expendable inefficiencies. I saw them as my new mission. Monday morning, I would start fighting back. But unlike the direct confrontation Marcus expected, I would use the most powerful weapon I'd learned in the military: thorough preparation, precise intelligence, and patience. Some battles are won before they're ever fought. Sunday night, I opened my laptop and began the kind of systematic intelligence gathering that had once been my profession. Marcus Blackwood's professional history looked impressive on paper, but deeper investigation revealed troubling patterns. His previous position at Portland State had ended abruptly after only 18 months. The university's annual reports showed a significant drop in library usage and student satisfaction during his tenure, followed by a comprehensive restructuring immediately after his departure. His position before that, at a private college in California, showed similar patterns. Initial praise from administration, declining services, then sudden departure with vague references to pursuing new opportunities. More interesting were the budget discrepancies I found in our own library's financial reports. Marcus had redirected funds from the federal community outreach grant into administrative efficiency improvements, expensive furniture for his office, a new computer system that no one had requested, and consulting fees paid to a company that shared an address with his personal residence. He hadn't just eliminated required programs, he'd essentially stolen the federal money meant to fund them. Monday morning, I began documenting everything with military precision. Every interaction, every policy change, every decision that violated either college procedure or federal grant requirements. I photographed budget reports, recorded conversations. Oregon is a one-party consent state, and maintained detailed logs of how his changes affected actual library services. Elena proved to be an invaluable ally. As the evening librarian, she saw things Marcus thought no one would notice. Students leaving frustrated after failed research attempts, faculty members complaining about reduced services, community members asking about the eliminated programs they'd relied on. He's been scheduling important meetings during times when you and Patricia can't attend, he told me. Last week, he met with the dean about library restructuring at 7 p.m., knowing neither of you would be here to provide input. Patricia contributed her own intelligence. The children's program families have been asking about spring registration. When I told them the programs were cancelled, several parents called the college directly to complain. Marcus told the dean that community complaints were minimal and expected during any transition. By Wednesday, I had enough evidence to prove financial mismanagement, violation of federal grant requirements, and systematic misrepresentation of community needs. But I needed more than evidence. I needed the right audience and perfect timing. Dr. Hayes provided the missing piece. The accreditation committee is visiting next month, she mentioned during one of our after-hours research sessions. They'll be evaluating all college departments, including library services and community engagement programs. Accreditation committees took federal compliance seriously. A library director who'd eliminated federally mandated programs while misappropriating grant funds would be exactly the kind of liability no college could afford during an accreditation review. Marcus had taught me patience was weakness. He was about to learn that patience, properly applied, was the most devastating weapon of all. The accreditation committee's preliminary review began January 10th. 5 days before my supposed termination date. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment, and timing would be everything. My first move was surgical and private. I compiled a comprehensive report detailing Marcus's violations of federal grant requirements, complete with photographic evidence and financial documentation. I sent this directly to the Department of Education's Office of Inspector General, which investigates grant fraud, and the college's Board of Trustees, bypassing Marcus entirely. The second phase required more delicacy. Dr. Hayes had mentioned that the accreditation committee would be interviewing various faculty members about library services. I quietly reached out to professors who'd been affected by Marcus's changes, not to coordinate their responses, but simply to ensure they knew the committee would welcome honest feedback about library effectiveness. Within 2 days, Marcus's confident demeanor began showing cracks. He called an emergency staff meeting Tuesday afternoon, his usual polish replaced by visible tension. I've been informed that some external parties have raised questions about our recent operational improvements, he announced, carefully avoiding eye contact with me. I want everyone to understand that any inquiries should be directed to me personally. We need to present a unified message about our library's excellence and efficiency. Elena and Patricia exchanged glances. They recognized the desperation behind his attempt to control the narrative. The breakthrough came Wednesday morning. Dr. Hayes stopped by my desk with barely contained excitement. "Rebecca, the most interesting thing happened during my accreditation interview yesterday. The committee specifically asked about our specialized research support and community outreach programs. When I described the quality of assistance students used to receive and the community programs that were eliminated, they seemed very concerned. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. They said those programs were specifically highlighted in our accreditation renewal application as evidence of community engagement. Apparently, someone promised the committee they were not only continuing but expanding. Marcus had lied to the accreditation committee just as he'd lied to the administration about community feedback and grant compliance. Thursday brought the first visible consequence. Dean Patterson appeared in the library unexpectedly, requesting to speak with Marcus privately. Their conversation, conducted in Marcus's office with the door closed, lasted over an hour. When the dean left, Marcus emerged looking shaken. Friday afternoon, I received an email that almost made me smile. My termination meeting, scheduled for the following Monday, had been postponed pending review of operational procedures. Marcus was discovering what every competent military strategist knows. When you build your position on lies and underestimate your opposition, the collapse comes quickly once the foundation starts cracking. The final phase would require patience for just a few more days. But the endgame was already in motion. The decisive moment came the following Tuesday during what Marcus had scheduled as a routine staff meeting. What he didn't know was that Dean Patterson would be attending, along with 2 members of the accreditation committee and a representative from the college's legal counsel. Marcus started with his usual confidence, launching into a presentation about library modernization success metrics. He'd prepared charts showing increased efficiency and streamlined operations, carefully omitting any mention of reduced services or eliminated programs. Our strategic restructuring has eliminated redundant community programs that were outside our academic mission, he stated proudly. This has allowed us to focus resources on core educational support. Dean Patterson interrupted quietly. Marcus, could you clarify something for us? The accreditation committee has questions about the federal community outreach grant we received. According to their records, those programs were mandatory, not optional. Marcus's confidence faltered slightly. I believe there may be some confusion about the grant requirements. The programs we eliminated were ancillary activities that weren't explicitly mandated. That's when I spoke up for the first time in months. Actually, Marcus, I have the original grant documentation here. I placed a thick folder on the table. The literacy programs, homework assistance, and senior computer training were specifically required as measurable community impact initiatives. Elimination of these programs constitutes a material breach of federal grant terms. The silence was profound. Marcus stared at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time. Furthermore, I continued, my voice carrying the steady authority I'd learned in military briefings. The grant funds redirected to administrative expenses appear to violate federal guidelines for educational grant usage. The consulting fees paid to Blackwood Solutions LLC, which shares your personal address, constitute a particularly serious compliance issue. Dean Patterson's expression grew increasingly grim as I presented each piece of evidence with clinical precision. The accreditation committee representatives took notes frantically. Marcus tried to recover. Rebecca, you're clearly misunderstanding the complexities of grant management and modern library administration. These decisions were made based on professional expertise My expertise includes a master's degree in intelligence studies from Georgetown University and 8 years of experience managing federal compliance in high-stakes environments, I said quietly. I believe I understand the complexities quite well. The revelation hit the room like a physical force. Marcus's face went through several color changes as the implications sank in. Dean Patterson cleared his throat. Marcus, I think we need to have a private conversation about your position here. Immediately. As the meeting dissolved into urgent whispers and hastily scheduled follow-up conferences, Marcus finally looked at me with something approaching recognition. The quiet librarian he'd tried to eliminate was gone, replaced by someone he should have been smart enough never to underestimate. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who's been hiding in plain sight. Marcus Blackwood's employment was terminated within 48 hours. The college's investigation revealed not only the grant violations I documented, but additional financial irregularities dating back to his first month on the job. The consulting fees paid to his personal company were the tip of an iceberg that included falsified vendor contracts and misappropriated technology funds. Dr. Patterson asked me to serve as interim head librarian while they conducted a proper search for Marcus's replacement. My first act was reinstating all the eliminated community programs and issuing a public apology to affected families and organizations. Elena was promoted to full-time status with benefits. Patricia's children's programs were not only restored but expanded with additional funding the college provided as part of their accreditation recovery plan. The Department of Education cleared us of ongoing violations, but required enhanced oversight for the next 2 years. 3 months later, the college offered me the permanent head librarian position. I accepted, but with conditions that would have amused my former military colleagues. Mandatory annual training for all staff on respectful workplace practices, transparent budget reporting, and an ironclad commitment to community outreach programs. The most satisfying moment came during my first staff meeting as official head librarian. Dr. Hayes attended to personally thank the library team for their improved research support. "Students are getting exactly the specialized help they need again," she said, looking directly at me. "It's remarkable what happens when expertise is properly valued instead of threatened." 6 months after Marcus's departure, I received an unexpected visitor. A young woman named Amanda Torres, recently hired as our new reference librarian, approached my desk nervously. "Ms. Martinez," she began hesitantly, "I wanted you to know that I heard about what happened here last year. With the previous director, I'm also a veteran. Army Reserve 2 deployments. I've been hiding it because I wasn't sure how civilian employers would react." I smiled, remembering my own years of careful concealment. "Amanda, your military experience makes you uniquely qualified to help our criminal justice and political science students. Would you be interested in developing some specialized workshops for them?" Her relief was visible. "I'd love that. Thank you for making it safe to be honest about who we are." Marcus had taught me an important lesson about the cost of hiding one's true capabilities. Sometimes the greatest service we can provide is simply refusing to diminish ourselves to make others comfortable. The wooden box in my closet now sits open on my office bookshelf. My military commendations are displayed alongside photos of community program participants and thank you letters from students, not as monuments to past glory, but as reminders that expertise earned through service should never be wasted on making inadequate leaders feel secure. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when victory protects others who cannot protect themselves. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.